Hello, Liverpool fans. It's been a tough week, hasn't it, between the Manchester City FA Cup tie and the Champions League first tie in Paris against PSG. With a couple of performances that, how can I put it, haven't exactly excited Liverpool fans at home, abroad, or wherever they follow the game. So, in the middle of all of this, there was still the small matter of a Premier League game, which was played earlier today at Anfield against Fulham. And in the Arne Slot era, albeit only 2 seasons long, Arne Slot's Liverpool haven't done very well against this team. In fact, they hadn't beaten them before today. So I think you could argue that this overlooked game is a little more important in some respects than either the FA Cup or the Champions League game, given the situation that the club is in right now. Because whether it's on a Slot in charge next year or a new manager, I think that they would like to be in a position where they've got Champions League games to contest. And I think also the owners and the fans, the owners from a financial point of view, the fans from the regard of status and what that brings, would like to keep Liverpool's place in the Champions League because it's going to affect everything they do through the off-season, especially when it comes down to recruiting new talent for the team. So we go into the game, and I have to say that watching the first half, I was thinking, where has this come from? This was a Liverpool team playing with energy and commitment, and totally different to the vast majority of games we've seen of late. And I have to say, I mean, I'm seeing all these comments about it wasn't the greatest display ever, it was better. And yes, it was better. And yes, it wasn't the greatest display ever for Liverpool Football Club. But there's some characteristics, as I say, that we just haven't seen of late. And Liverpool had a lot of commitment in their play. They were going forward. They were taking shots at goal, which have been at a premium in first halves this season. And they just look so much better. Salah was actually involved over on the right-hand side of the field. And over on the left, obviously, the guy that's attracting most of the headlines today, 17-year-old Rio Engamoa, who, I mean, I watched him play last year with the youth team and also the reserves and what have you. And you could see he was very skilled. But I know my thought at the time was, when I was watching these games, that he had talent, but there was very little end product most of the time. Well, I can say quite markedly and with authority that that's changed, because he was dynamite at times today. Incredibly fast feet. He was causing problems for Fulham. He was giving the Reds a great outlet out on the left. And yeah, he was a thorn for the opposition constantly. And it was through Engamoa that the first goal came, and it was a real cracker as he kind of dazzled a couple of Fulham players with his fast feet. Which way was he going to go? Left, right? And then he brings it back to the right, and using the two guys as a screen, curls it into the bottom corner beyond the goalie. And it was some goal, you really have to say. So Engamoa has certainly made his mark today, not just against Fulham, but I think for the football club going forward in the future. And as I said, Salah seemed to be a lot more invested and a lot more involved in the game. So maybe sitting out on Wednesday is a nice little kick up the backside, as they say. And he was doing a lot better. And moments later, it was Engamoa again cutting inside, sliding the ball over to Cody Gakpo. And I mean, to give Gakpo his credit, he set up Salah beautifully. And we got a traditional Mo Salah finish. First time, curled into the opposite corner to the one that Engamoa had scored in. And here we are, Liverpool, poverty of chances in most of the games this year in the first half. Already 2 goals for the goods. and looking overall in fine fettle. Now, the second half, I'm sure that some Liverpool fans will look at it in the context of what we've seen this season. Fulham certainly came into the game. And if you look at the stats overall, they actually had one more shot than Liverpool did. And I think I saw a stat somewhere that this was the most chances, well, not chances is the wrong word. It's the most attempts by a side at Anfield from an away side since 2005, which, okay, they had a couple of great chances, which maybe they could have converted, but give them their due. They came into the game. I don't think they're mugs, Fulham. I think they play good football, not always great on the road, but they were certainly pushing Liverpool back to some degree. So how would I evaluate Liverpool's second half performance? Obviously, it wasn't quite at the same level as the first half. And I think you've got to look at it from the point of view that every game there's going to be ebb and flow. So there were times when Fulham had Liverpool push back. And then there were times when Liverpool kind of turned table and they had the Londoners push back to some degree. There were chances, a couple for Gakpo. And when McAllister came on, he had a good drive just outside the box that was on the wrong side of the post. So overall, I would say a more even second half. I think psychologically for the team, it was good that they got a clean sheet. Were they edgy? A little bit in defence. And if Fulham had have converted one or two of their best chances, would the team and the crowd have got nervous? Yes, I think that would be the case. But overall, a much improved performance, a lot more energy, and as I said earlier, a lot more commitment in Liverpool's play. Engamoa will be the guy that's getting the headlines this morning, and inevitably fans and pundits are going to look at that from the point of view of the upcoming second leg against PSG on Tuesday night. In other words, should Engamoa start? And it's an interesting thought. It's an interesting thought because Liverpool do have to do something that they didn't do in Paris, which is actually have more of an attacking plan, not just the Joe Gomez long throw. And so how are they going to do that? And it's a little bit of a conundrum, I feel, for the manager in this situation because the Reds are 2 goals down. And we all saw what PSG could do. They've got 3 guys up front who are tremendous. And the way they push the fullbacks forward into attacking positions, I mean, like they're threatening. And I think most of us wouldn't be optimistic that Liverpool can hold out totally for 90 minutes on Tuesday. So for me, I think you've got to match up in the wide areas. And I would pick a defence of arguably the 4 best defenders that we have, even though they're not totally on form. And that is on the right, Joe Gomez, Konate and Virgil in the middle, and then Andy Robertson on the left. Now, Andy Robertson announced this week that he is going to leave, and obviously that's a sad thing for us Reds fans. For me, he's been the best left back that we've ever had. And I go all the way back to the 60s and the Bill Shankly era. And I think that Liverpool, when he's in the team, they look better. They look more balanced. They look calmer at the back. They're better going forward. Kerkez came to the club with a great reputation, and he was fabulous for Bournemouth this year. Started off slowly this season, and he has gotten better. But I don't think he's really going to excel at Liverpool, actually, until Andy Robertson goes. And I think it has something to do with the fact that Robbo is very popular, not just amongst the fan base, but amongst the team. And I just think that having him there helps the team. I don't think Arne Slot will play him there, but anyway, that's my 10 cents for what it's worth. So I would pick those 4 at the back. And actually, as a wild card choice, I would put Kerkez as a left side midfielder and Frimpong over on the right-hand side. And you can kind of be critical of that and say, well, why do that? But what does it do? It gives you pace and commitment on both sides of the wide midfield. And Liverpool didn't have that in Paris. They had the fullbacks push very far back and a lot of space that PSG were able to exploit easily. And so I think against PSG, Liverpool are going to have to play a lot more direct, maybe even some percentage football. Not sure that Arne Slot will encourage that. But if you've got two guys in the wide areas that are prepared to make forward runs, then who knows? So, I mean, you could play Kerkez there, and then later in the game, you bring on Ngamoa. So just a thought from my point of view. What do you do with Mo Salah for PSG? I think you've got to play him, really. But the downside of it is if he's struggling, as he has terribly in some games this year, you're going to have to hook him. And is it better to play it that way, or is it better to bring him on later when the game opens up more? So you could kind of have what I would call an emotional team, one that excites the crowd. And that would be including in a front kind of attacking foursome, Salah, Ngamoa, Ekitike, and Florian Wirtz. So you've got those four. They're maybe not going to give you as much defensively. And arguably, you need players that can do both. But maybe if they get going in a similar fashion as they did in the first half against Fulham, then that can really encourage the crowd to get behind the team. And as we've seen many, many times over the years, and in my case, the decades, that's when Liverpool Football Club are at their most dangerous when it comes to European football. So, look, some big questions for the manager to consider going into the PSG game. I think that he should be encouraged, and we should be encouraged that at last we did see some energy from a Liverpool team and some encouraging performances. So I'll leave it there today. Thank you for tuning in. Love to hear from people. Love your comments. Love your thoughts. And I will see you after the PSG game on Tuesday. Take care now. Bye now.